Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm the gnarly gnome. This is Cincy Brewcast. It's the voice of Cincy Craft. I would say we're back, but I feel like every time that I do a show here, things are drastically different than the time that I did a show before. It seems like this is one of those places that has had several different lives throughout its life, for good. Each one just gets better and better. So I guess that's a good thing. We're at Dead Low. If you guys don't know about Dead Low, located in what is this, California, Ohio, Ohio, which nobody knows where that is, but it's right on the other side of the highway from Riverbend and the carcass of Sunlight Pool and all of that.
Just salt.
Don't worry, we won't talk about it. But I can't drive that direction right now. I can't. I'm not ready for it.
Without a box of
my wife, not to get too much into like personal like life stuff, but she one of the places that she kind of works is over in this side of town. And the day that they started demolishing it, she was leaving there and she was turning from Salem over here onto 50, and she took a picture and she's like, "What's going on?" What do you mean? Why do you have to bring it up? Welcome to the show, guys. Introduce yourselves. Your first time on the show. Let people know who you are and what you do here.
Chris Cooper. Most people call me Coop. I'm the head brewer. Pretty much everything. Head brewer, packaging, cellar work, whatever.
Yeast farmer. Well, wasn't that Scott LaFollette's title on his business card? Yeast farmer, something like that.
Brewhouse troll. I don't know.
pretty much.
My name is Brock Lush. I'm the event coordinator here. So I take care of getting all the events situated, whether they be private events for people that are doing retirement parties, birthday parties, that kind of thing, or it be any of our events that are going on, like our anniversary stuff.
I imagine that this is one of those spots that does a lot of private event stuff. It's just such a big space. People come in like, "Oh, this would be perfect for, so-and-so's, anniversary or whatever's going on." Like, it just seems like a great space for it.
Yeah, last year I think we easily did like 150 events in a year.
That's a good amount.
Yeah, it's a lot. Keeps you busy.
It's went up drastically since he's been on.
Well, I guess that's a good thing.
Absolutely.
It's a good flag to wave for you. Let's start things off the right way. This is a craft beer podcast. We got to drink some beer. It's not a beer fridge, but whatever. You guys brought me a nice little flight here. What is this first one that you put in front of me?
So the first one is a German Pilsner. It's been lagering in my fermenter. It's still there. It's not carbonated yet.
Proper lager?
9 weeks.
Actual like lager yeast?
9 weeks, yep.
Okay.
Yep, Munich lager, yeast.
Cheers.
Well, cheers, guys. The sound of drinking. Oh, that's good. I wish it was carbonated to get like that other little pop right at the end, but
Yep.
It's good even without it.
Yeah. It's got a good minerality to it.
Yeah, that's great. A little bit of earthiness going on there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I can get behind that all day.
Yep.
Let's talk. Let's dig into the tough stuff first. When Dead Low first opened, there was a journey, I guess, that the beer has kind of undergone throughout that history. How do you come into a place that does have some people that are like, "Hey, I haven't been here since you guys opened and just really didn't like the beer." How do you come into that? Pay enough kind of respect to some of the people that are sitting at the bar that did love it when some of those beers were being made, but put your own spin on it, make them better, and make something that you're proud of to say, "Yeah, this is my beer."
That's tough. The guys that were here before me, they did the best they could, I guess. And I just the stuff I learned at 50 West, I just brought all that here,
right?
And just kind of carried it over, and just I
don't know. Is it tough sometimes though? Because I assume that there are some recipes laying around that you either you put your own spin on maybe, but you're still making a beer that is not your beer.
Yeah.
Is that difficult to do, or is there some kind of fun in that too, of trying to like just poke it just enough to just keep kind of making it your thing?
Honestly, without even having to change any of the recipe, just by the practices that I do, has improved. Like, people that have worked here, they're like, "I don't know what you did, but this beer much better than last time." I'm like, I just did it properly. Like
Right.
I let, secondary fermentation, I let the, yeast get clean up all the off products from fermentation and everything and just give it time.
Right. How long have you been here?
This will be
Coming up on
year
2
two.
years, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Year 2.
I feel like it just happened. Like I feel like it wasn't that long ago, but I guess that's time doesn't make sense. What about have you? Is there any pushback from people that maybe are regulars that say, hey, this isn't what I remember it being? Like, are you seeing some of that at all? Or people just don't notice that it's been tweaked and they're just like, oh, this just tastes better. I don't know.
No, not really any of that. Most of it is I have, some of our regulars or even some of the investors will come up to me and they'll be like, when are you going to bring this beer back? Or, when are you going to make this style? And I'm like, I try to do that as much as I can without, affecting everything out there. So
Right.
like the malt liquor, give one of the owners, super nice guy. He's been wanting it since they opened.
I remember that from the first time I did an episode here. The original head brewer here was like, "Oh, we're gonna make a malt liquor." I go, you're gonna do what?
It's so good though.
And that's what when you think back then. You said it's what 5 years.
5 years
5
coming
years.
up in October.
When you think back to 5 years ago, like the idea in my head of a craft malt liquor didn't make sense. Whereas now, like enough stuff has happened and enough things have changed and enough like people have like, hey, we're gonna do this fun thing or this fun thing. I'm like, okay, like I kind of want to try it. Like I get it. I want everything possible to be made, and I want to try it all from some kind of more craft perspective.
And that's the approach I took on it. It's technically like a Pilsner style lager. And
just Imperial.
I mean, it's not
what's
as high.
ABV? What do you?
I think it's 5.6.
It's 5.
Okay, so that's not bad.
A little
That's
higher
still
than
drinkable.
Yeah, and I just the grain bill I used it's craft beer, but it has that touch of nostalgia for people that used to drink malt liquor back in the day and whatnot. So
What are the defining style characteristics of a malt liquor?
Brown paper bag.
That's the only thing I know of. Big giant can and a brown paper bag.
well, a lot of them have most of them are done with rice and corn or maize. And so I took that approach. It was about 50-50, and then I added just a touch of like Pilsner malt, and then some traditional German hops to bring out more of that craft aspect and like that sweet corniness, like
How
on
does
the
that-
back end and
How does
bitterness.
that differ from like a cream ale?
I'm not sure. I don't know if cream ales use a lot of maize and rice, or if they. I haven't made. That's one recipe I haven't really.
I think there's
Mess with.
corn for sure. I think that's
Okay.
part of the whole. But I don't know. I don't know enough about the actual style characteristics. I know what things are supposed to taste like.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's talk about. We'll start with either one of you, whoever wants to go first. Talk about kind of your journey into craft beer. Let's go back to kind of. Do you remember your first beer period, or do you remember your first craft beer? Or how did you get down this road?
I started pretty similar to a lot of people. I was sick of drinking Miller Lite, Coors Light all the dang time, and I went to this craft beer store in Toledo, and I was just kind of looking at them, and then I saw this crazy label. It just looked like
The label.
some kid drew it.
Yeah.
And I looked at the name. It was called Raging Bitch
Yep.
by Flying Dog. And then I looked at the ABV. I was like, grabbed it instantly. Like, we're gonna try this. And it was their what was it? Belgian IPA.
Mm-hmm.
Loved it. Like, it was one of the first IPAs I think I've really had, and it was just like doors open.
It's
Floodgates.
an interesting. Like, people always say, I've heard it with both just beer in general and IPA or any kind of bigger style, that it's an acquired taste. And like I like when I hear that other people pick something like that up the first time and enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Because like I don't understand that acquired taste thing. Like I've never there are definitely some styles that I enjoyed more than others or disliked more than others, but like that first sip of beer, I still remember like loving that. Like I couldn't understand what it was.
Yep.
But like that little bitter kind of thing, and like it was just, man, this is delicious.
Yeah.
And IPA the same way. The first time I tried an IPA, I loved it.
That
Now
was
that
not
I'm
the
saying,
case for me.
now that I'm saying that, I'm remembering the first time I tasted lambic though, and I did not love that.
Oh.
I finished it, but I did not enjoy it. It made me question everything about myself.
See, my first introduction was like Blue Moon,
Yeah.
a little bit, and then I had a friend was like, "If you like that, you're gonna like Hefeweizen," and so like I tried that. I was like, "All right, that's good," but like the first like initial like craft beer when I moved to Cincinnati that I had was Dunkel from Christian Moorline.
Okay.
And I was like, "Oh, this is good stuff," and that kind of set me on this thing of like, "All right, I like dark beers more than I like a light beer," and it just from there I was like, "I'm not into sours, I'm not into IPAs," and then I've met up with other people and they're like, you should try these," and so I've kind of gotten to this where it's like, all right, you go and you try it, and the way that I've been kind of taught how to sort of get over that, like, oh, I don't know if I'm gonna like this, is you do 3 sips.
Yeah.
You know, you do that first initial, and of course, like for most people, it might just get you. You're like, ugh, you know, and then the second one, you're like, all right, my tongue's coated with it, so that's a little better. And then on the third one, you can really make that decision.
Yeah.
Is that going to be the one that you like, or you're like, no, I'll discard that right now?
It's we talked a couple episodes ago about flights, and that there are some places that have stopped like doing flights. They'll just serve it in half pints or full pints, and that whether that's the right way to do it or not, like I do think that there's something about having a little bit more beer to experience a beer. Like especially as an earlier beer enthusiast, there are beers that like it wasn't until like that second half of a pint of beer that it finally clicked. I'm like, oh my god, like this, I can taste this thing now that like I didn't taste before. Be it my palate had to adjust, or the beer had to warm up a little bit, or whatever it was. Like, you know, getting to that point in your glass of beer is part of the fun of what makes beer what it is.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, it's not like that with a lot of other beverages that I've experienced. Like getting to that sweet spot, and the sweet spot changes for different people and for different experiences and that kind of stuff. But you don't get that with one sip. Sometimes you don't get it even with 3. Sometimes it takes a little bit to get to that. You know?
Yeah, I can agree with that.
It's fun. How'd you guys end up here at Dead Low?
For me, it was I was a stay-at-home dad for like 6 years, actually. So
God bless you.
through the before the pandemic and
I
through
do
the
2 days a
pandemic.
week with mine, and I
Well, I mean, for me, like
I put my
there's a-
youngest in a box the other day and tried to sell him.
Yeah?
We tried to put him
Tried
on
to send him
eBay.
off? Okay.
Yeah, and evidently you can't do that.
Yeah, I'd say that, or did you get a return to sender? type
No,
deal?
no, it just
Never even made it out of the post office.
My daughter started Googling. She's like, Dad, I don't think we can do this. I'm like, oh, man.
But yeah, so I was at home for 6 years, but I was also involved in the National At Home Dad Network, which is a 501c3 that puts on like conventions every year and does a lot of different things. Like I actually run their podcast, but the thing that got me into here was the experience I had running the Home Dad Con, the convention.
Right.
And I was actually the head of that for 3 years. And then my kids got in school constantly. So like I think we made it through like kindergarten and like first grade. I was like, all right, like I understand what they're doing. Like I can kind of make this happen. And I started looking for a place and just looking for a job. My wife was like, it's not a rush. Like find something that you really enjoy doing. And so I just
sits down on the couch. He's got a pineapple.
Yeah.
What do I love to? Oh,
yeah, exactly. Well, and I was working for Cincy Brewcast for
Right.
a while there too, doing tour guides and stuff. And I got to know a lot of like the industry and like just a lot of education. And they posted that they were looking for an event coordinator here. And so I interviewed for it. And I actually interviewed for a different position as well, which was social media here because I had both those backgrounds. And in the end, like it just kind of worked out that event coordinating fit. And so
Right.
I've been here for just over a year and it's been great. People here have been awesome. The community here is so supportive. Like they were telling me before, like, oh yeah, like you might have to do like, you know, call outs to people and stuff like that. I haven't had to call anybody out. Like everybody is like emailing me and calling me and stuff. And it's just an awesome environment to be able to work around, to have that, you know, just constant flow of traffic of people being like, I want to come experience this brewery.
right. What about you, Coop? Like to make that jump from working at 50 West, where things are pretty well established how that place works now, and you can find a place in that machine and be pretty happy with just coming in and making beer, versus coming into a place like this where it all kind of falls on your shoulders and it's a very different type of experience. How did you make that decision? How did all that happen?
So I was brewing at 50 for six going on 7 years, I believe. And, I've learned a lot. I'm very thankful for the time they gave me. But by the time I left, it was a lot of production work.
Yeah.
So I was making the same 5-6 beers over and over and over. And it was just like becoming daunting. And I was starting to lose interest in the whole thing. And then one of my friends used to serve here, still kept in contact with Kyle, one of the owners. And she reached out to me and was like, hey, they're looking for a head brewer. Would you be interested? So I just kind of was like, let's go see what they got to say.
Yeah.
So came in, me, Kyle and Brian, like we are the only ones usually here in the morning. We clicked right away. So I knew I was going to be working with these two every day and clicked really well. So, we talked about pay. The pay matched what I was looking for. I get the feather in my cap for being head brewer, and I get to be creative. I get to make all my own recipes now, and, everything falls on me. And I was a little nervous at first, but once I got the hang of the system and started getting good at, creating recipes, it was just like,
right.
took off.
Well, the fun about a place like this, because the food here is a big part of what Dead Low is. And we'll kind of talk about what Dead Low is. Even some of that still is the same as the other episodes, and I'll link to those in the show notes, but we'll get to it. But the food here is a big part of what this place is. And that, to me, enables like this whole other side of freedom with the beer that some other places don't have. Like if you're grabbing some beer with your dinner, there might be some different things that you would order versus if you're just coming in and you're wanting to sit. If we want to use 50 West as the example, sit by a volleyball court and watch your kids play in the sand.
Right.
Drinking something different than if I'm here and I'm having dinner and having that whole experience.
Yeah, there's definitely a pairing of beer to food here is definitely at its height. I always tell people that this place is a restaurant with a brewery attached to it,
right,
just because it helps give that better definition of what this place actually is. Is a lot of times like, it's a brewery, I don't know. And I'm like, no, it's a restaurant that just has this amazing brewery attached to it that has great drinks, to go along with your food. And, we get compliments all the time about the food. It's like, your wings are amazing, the pizza's good, that kind of thing. So,
it's strange, but I think even if we, go back 5 years ago when it opened, it was hard for people to kind of understand that. I still think it's hard for some people to understand that.
Yeah.
It's like this kind of meeting of different types of experiences that people are looking for, different places that they want to go to.
Well, it's like that for, you go into a typical just like brewery setup, you're just going to walk in, grab a seat, grab whatever's available. And here you can't do that. And that is definitely the switch or the barrier that comes into play, because you have a lot of that like, well, why can't I just come in and sit? It's like, well, it's a restaurant, so it actually has a hostess and like we're going to set you. And that's one of the things I also deal with and here all the time is talking to people about like, hey, can you reserve us this? And it's like, actually, that's very difficult to do in this certain situation, especially in the summer. Oh my gosh. Like, right down from the river bend, like you said. So whenever there's a concert down there, if the doors are opening, say 6:30, 7 o'clock, we open at 4, people are standing at the door ready to come in and eat.
Right.
And it's like, I can't save any space for anybody. I can't even do private events on those nights because the kitchen's going to get hammered, and I want to make sure that they're at their highest efficiency, and to put on a private event along with everything else going on in here,
right?
I really don't need them at my throat. They have knives.
Yeah.
As the industry has kind of shifted, and we do see more places that are real, even if they were a brewery first, and they're realizing, oh man, we gotta really step up our food game. We've got to figure this whole thing out. As the industry has changed in that way, or even on the beverage side, we've seen plenty of people now like, oh man, we've got to have cocktails, we've got to have some kind of seltzer for people, we have to have wine, everybody's starting to figure this out. How do you think that, where do you sit kind of in that spectrum of stuff? How is beer sit in the spectrum of importance versus everything else?
I'm struggling with having to start making, NA beers or like the seltzer's fine. Like I get it. It's all right. It's whatever, It's not for me,
right?
But I brew it because there are people that do like them.
There's a lot of people that like the seltzer here because it's a base seltzer, and then you can pump in your own flavors
Right.
that we have. So it's different setup than most places where it's like this is the only flavor you're getting.
Right.
Yeah. But I eventually might have to jump on that wagon and start working on an NA, beer of some sort. I don't know what yet. Like I said, I'm just dragging my feet because I really don't want to make one. But that's where the industry's going, man.
I just feel like I've been going through some kind of weird like craft beer crisis. Like every time I sit at a bar now, it's like you see such an emphasis put on all these other things, and like I'm starting to miss just walking in and being, hey, you want to talk about beer? It's like, yeah, yes, I do. Like I'm starting to kind of. I feel like when Dead Low opened, there weren't a lot of places that kind of hit that middle ground of both sides really well.
Right.
Whereas now it feels like everybody is trying to either kind of come back to that or meet that or are opening that way. And it's like, what happened to the other side? Like where everything is falling into this middle ground now. And I don't know. As a beer drinker, I can't figure it out. I just feel like we need a little bit of everything.
Right. I think people are understanding, like, there is definitely a push of like, hey, like if I'm going to come here and I'm going to drink and, I want to make sure that I've got food to kind of fill along with that. And so I definitely see like that side of it, especially from people who maybe they're going out, they're the sober one, and so like having that NA, whether and it doesn't. I don't feel like it has to be brewed by that local brewery.
No,
like
I don't think so.
There's some great breweries out here, like Athletic.
Yeah, we supply Athletic.
Yeah,
If
we have
you
Athletic.
can't do it better, don't. Like, it's just
Or if you don't
stick
have
to
the
what you do
equipment,
well.
or if you don't have the equipment to do
Sure.
it, because it does take a specialized type of equipment to make an NA beer, and that's expensive. So if you're a brewery that's like, I don't have, that's not what I want to invest
Right.
my capital in, then I mean, there's other ways to go about it, which, like he was saying, like we have Athletic beer here. A lot of the folks that drink it are very appreciative that it is here.
Yeah.
But yeah, even so, that's the other side of it. So I always just like kind of fall in this line of like, we do have stuff, because I get asked that a lot, when we're doing parties. People are like, oh, what do you have? And it's like, we have all of our beers, and then we have ciders from Northwood, out of Norwood.
Right.
And then we have NA beer from Athletic. And I think we have a couple of them actually. And so there's a little bit of a choice there. And they're typically like, great, I'm glad you have that.
Yeah.
How do you distinguish you guys from everybody else as more and more places kind of do lean more into food or create spaces that are kind of that brew pub model or some kind of twist on that? How do you guys set yourselves apart from that and become different, especially in a city like Cincinnati where there's a lot of cool things happening?
I would say beer-wise, we're not much different than everyone else. I try to keep a very broad.
You're the only malt liquor on tap right now, as far as I know.
Come get it.
I do some things differently. Like I got to make a couple recipes that didn't really go anywhere, but other than that, like I think what sets us out is there's a lot of emphasis on live music here. We might not have live bands all the time here, but being right down the way from Riverbend, and some of the owners, they're really into music. So I think that's one of the aspects that I think is a little different than all the other people out there.
Yeah. And we put a lot of concern too, I think, into just parking. Our parking situation is not ideal in any type of way. And we get that comment.
You've got a parking lot, so that's better than half of the other breweries in town.
We do have a parking lot. You don't have to pay to park there. Yeah, just the fact that there's no relationship with the place behind us makes it that much more difficult. But that plays a part too, in like, what kind of things we can plan and how we want to go about parking people. Because the last thing we want is for people to like be excited to come here and get here and be like, where the heck am I going to park my car at? And and some people were like, some people park over at the church that's like 2 blocks over at St. Jerome. They're like, I'm gonna park there and walk. It's worth it. I don't care. Which I'm happy to get you there. That's great. I'm happy you're able to come to it. So. But yeah, that's the other part that always plays, because we always get asked like, are you doing live bands? And we try to get them in as often. We're trying to do that on like a quarterly basis at least.
Right.
But even that can be challenging.
Right. Let's drink another beer.
Oh yeah.
I would say let's go with the Gary.
Yeah, let's do the Gary.
Do the Gary next, and
orange cream.
We'll probably finish with the Mocha. Since it's darker, it's going to have that bitterness, and you don't want that affecting your palate.
I'll play bartender here.
Orange cream. What's the base style? Like a.
It's like a creamsicle, basically.
Yeah, it's not. It technically isn't a cream ale. I think it was closer to like a wheat.
Okay.
It's like there's like more of a wheat base.
I imagine you guys do most of your business in the summertime when it's nice outside and people can sit on your big giant deck and beer garden. This is one of those beers that is perfect for that.
Yep.
You want to sit outside, you want to sit in the sun. Day like today, it's perfect. It's smooth and creamy, and it's perfect.
Yeah.
And it tastes like a creamsicle.
This is
what I was going for.
actually every month we pick a beer for beer of the month and donate $1 of every sale of the pint to a nonprofit.
Right.
And this month's nonprofit is 5-in-1 suicide prevention group here locally in town.
Yep.
And so like Kyle, he works with me and so our marketing director to kind of get that put in place. But yeah, so this is the one that if anybody's wanting to do that, that's what you do. Order that up.
Oh, and people have been
It's
drinking
great.
it like crazy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
they're
it's
gonna-
great. I feel like it's one of those beers that anybody can enjoy. Like, there's a lot of people that'll walk in and maybe they don't like IPAs or they don't like some of those kind of stronger, bigger flavors. This is going to make them happy.
Yeah.
But then, even if you're the biggest IPA drinker in the world, you're like, oh, the hoppier the better. I want to melt the enamel off my teeth.
Well, I came out with a mixture of two beers. You get like a third of this and 2/3 of the hazy. Tastes
Okay,
like a milkshake.
I can see that.
milkshake IPA.
Yeah, I can see that.
So if you want to meet both ends, like some of the bartenders are,
Mixing them up.
they'll
Yeah,
be
I can
okay
see
with
that.
doing that. But
I think that whole world of blending beers is just waiting to explode. Like, there are so many things that like people could, if they realized that I could take these two beers and put them together and figure out my perfect blend of the two, would open up this whole other avenue that they don't even realize is there. Like, I don't really like a orange creamsicle beer, and I don't really like things too hoppy. I was like, put them together.
Was that you that sent me that link or something for the beer that was like 2 8-ounces that you could snap them apart from each other and pour them in together?
That's
somebody
cool.
somebody sent me a video of that just recently where it was like it was 2 of those like 8-ounce cans.
Yeah.
They were actually used. They used a sticker label.
And they
you
just
could
wrapped them together?
Yeah, wrapped them together, stacked them,
cool.
and wrapped them. They had 2 different styles. Like one was like something spicy, and I forget what the other one was. But they wrapped it, and you could literally like snap them in half. You could try both of them, side by side, and then put it together and see what it was like. I was like, oh my god, like is that
sounds
where we're
interesting.
going?
Mad Tree did a collaboration with Shorts years ago that was like it was right after Shorts came into Ohio. They did this 6-pack, and it was 3 beers that Mad Tree brewed, 3 that Shorts did, and it was supposed to be like a gin and tonic thing. But it was kind of like that. Like, one of them was supposed to be more of like the gin flavors, one was supposed to be more of like tonic flavors, but they never marketed it. That idea of now put them together.
Mix them.
Like, obviously that was the idea, but like they never kind of got that through to the consumer. in
hoping
my
they would get
opinion.
there themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we can go down a little rabbit hole here. I've probably talked about this on one of my shows. I don't know if it was this one or one of the live ones. It's probably one of the live ones. We're seeing places now with bourbon that you've got this custom bourbon experience. The guys out at Brain Brew.
Yeah.
They're doing this whole custom bourbon thing where I want a little bit of this flavor and a little bit of this flavor and then this, and then it makes your perfect bourbon and spits it out into a bottle, and which is cool. I think that's going to happen with beer at some point. There's going to be a bar that opens up, or maybe a brewery that opens up, and they've got like these very simple base styles with the whole intention of you creating your own pint. Whether it's something where you're pushing buttons on a thing and it spits out like one of those Coke
like
machines.
Coke machines. That's what I was thinking. I like a vision this Coke machine. Like,
Which,
oh my God.
I mean, maybe that's it, but so you're creating your own beer.
We're halfway there with the self-serving,
Yeah.
kind of breweries like
Yeah.
Big Ash and whatnot. So, just turn it into a little kiosk or
it's
just
getting
mix them.
so close to that. I'm like, why is nobody doing this yet? Because I think that's what people want. I think people they want their own experience. A lot of people want their own experience, but I don't know if that's good for craft beer or bad for craft beer though.
Boy, that is, I feel like, an experiment that is definitely a 50-50 shot on that one.
Right.
But I mean, and obviously, I don't think every place can be like that. But like, man, there's the self-serve places like Big Ash or the place in Loveland. I hate it. I don't want to pour my own beer. I want to sit at a bar and I want to talk to a bartender and I want somebody to be like, hey, you should try this. I really like it because of this. And I'm like, oh, that sounds fun. I'll take one of those. That's the experience I want from a brewery. But there are tons of people that walk in like, this is great. I get to pour my own beer. And I'm like, okay, like there are people that like it. I think it's the same thing. Like you can't have every place be like that, but to find a place for everybody, I think is super important.
I mean, niche is okay in mild drops.
As long as it's good. As long as it's good.
Well, the Gary, like I've seen people like the other day, Cope mixed it with the Mocha.
Oh,
it was
yeah, like an orange chocolate.
Yeah.
Chocolate covered orange.
That tasted good. I mixed it with the Sunlight Splash, the strawberry lemonade wit.
Ooh, okay.
Did well with that. Like it's like so many things that you can mix with this one. And
it is fun to experiment.
They turn out they're all interesting, but they're all good in their own right.
Yeah.
Who is Gary and how do you get his own beer?
Gary is the mascot for FCC.
Oh, okay. Yes. I know that.
It's okay.
Orange. It all makes sense now.
That's one aspect that I don't mind giving away. Like, if you want to name this beer, please come up with something. I'm not.
It's tough now. Well, you can just punch it into Chat GPT now and have Chat GPT spit out a bunch of stuff for you. But
yeah, we spend a lot of time. We like search on Untapped, be like, okay, is this been used or not?
Yeah, it's getting increasingly more difficult. Even just like if you just focus on like the places around here, just not want to step on any of their toes. Like it's hard to find something that's unique and different. And Gary's actually a great name for an FC beer. Like that's good. That's good.
Well, and he did a collab last year actually with some of the guys from the supporters group that he's in.
Yep.
And, we had that beer at 50 West, and wasn't it or
we did it at Taft's.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Ale House. We did it at Taft's Ale House, and it was a citrus lager.
Yeah.
And it was called the Fifth Line Lager. And that's the name of our supporter group is the Fifth Line.
That was super tasty too.
But yeah,
I've been to one FC game. We went earlier this year, and it ended in a tie, 0-0. And I didn't understand that could happen.
Yep.
It was so disappointing.
I was at that game. Where do you sit in the stands or do you stand in the Bailey?
No, yeah, we were up in the stands, in the shade, in the cold.
Okay.
It was.
If you go next time,
it was fun.
You're gonna have to stand for 90 minutes.
That's fine.
But you want to go to the Bailey.
There's so many things that I figured out that not that I did it wrong, but the game was not the best game to make your first and so far only game to go to. Or match, we call them matches, right?
Yeah.
The match that you should go to is your first one. Should also wait till a little later in the year when it's a little bit warmer, a little bit more enjoyable. Also, I didn't know about Das Boot, that you can get these boots.
Yes.
Nobody told me about that ahead of time, and so I'm just sitting there drinking cans of beer like a weirdo, not realizing that I could go get a boot. So there's lots of things that I will do differently next time.
Do you know about the where the lion is on the seats there in the section across from the team? Below that is actually a beer hall. And
nobody told me that either.
I did a tour when I was buying a group set of tickets, and the guy I was working was like, "Hey, do you want to go on a tour of the I'm like, "Yeah, dude, like let's go check this out." And I had my kids with me, and he took me down there, and he's like, "Yeah, this is where like the season ticket holders that have these seats, like they can come down here." I'm like, "This needs to be like something that's open in the off season. Like,
that would be cool.
It's just a freaking amazing space. I mean, just imagine, I think it's like, you know how at GABP, you got at Great American, you got the big long line of taps?
Yeah.
Double that. That's how long it is. It's crazy.
Jeez.
That's a good point, though. Like, why don't any of our stadiums have like a bar or a restaurant that's in the stadium that you can also get to, like in off season?
The only one I know of is at Great American Ballpark, because they have Wings and Rings now up on the where the machine room used to be. And that's open, from what I understand, all year round. You can go there, but I mean it's a small place. It's not that's not a very big space. But yeah, like when I was talking with him, I'm like, dude, this would be such a draw for people to like come into. And it's a really cool space and has like these huge tables. I mean,
we need more beer halls in this city. It's
no
especially
kidding.
downtown.
Get back to the traditional beer hall.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I miss Mecklenburg already.
I don't want to talk about that.
I know, dude. That one.
Ready.
I used to go to Mustard Club.
I'm
and once they changed
still
the
holding
location,
out hope that maybe somebody will figure something out, but it's just so expensive. Like, there's no way somebody can come in and buy that and make it make sense unless they just kill every ounce of soul that was already there.
Yeah,
it's heartbreaker.
It is.
There's not enough like German restaurants in the city for how crazy we are about our German heritage, but I digress. Get out of the rabbit hole.
It's all good.
We should let's get another beer here, and that'll get us kicked back into something on topic.
All right, so we're doing the Doppelbock next, right? All right, this is our award-winning Doppelbock. We going to silver at Bockfest this past year for this one.
Thank you.
Bockfest is such a weird Cincinnati thing, and I'm amazed every year at how many places still make a Bock beer. Do you guys have trouble like explaining Bock beer to people when they come in and sit at the bar, or are we at that point now where people finally get it because of Cincinnati?
I mean, I just make it really simple for people that don't like really know. Just tell them it's like a traditional German like lager, like a little darker,
Right.
like, a little maltier. But yeah, I just keep it really basic for them, and you know.
I feel like I always get the question of like, what's the deal with the goat? Like, why? What's all these elements? Like, it's always somebody from outside of town too. So you're like trying to explain like monks and goats.
Well, it's all every story about it's all like a bunch of BS. Nobody really knows how it really happened.
Right.
Like, we don't know how people start associating goats with it. It's there's a lot of fun stories.
That's what makes it. That's what makes it fun too.
All right, let me try this.
Now this one you're probably going to need like 3 sips after having that cream ale.
Describe this one a little bit. Like, what's the ABV on it? What notes are there?
Oh, I want to see if I can nail this without looking. ABV, I believe, is 8.2.
I'm looking to see if I can find it up there.
Should be on the section with the lagers.
8.3.
IBUs are thinking like 28.
22. Just by taste.
What's
I didn't
crazy
look.
is it doesn't drink. It doesn't drink like an 8.3 at all.
No.
No.
Which is what's fun about Bock beer is that you get these bigger beers that drink so easy. It's a perfect spring beer. This is great.
So yeah, a lot of caramel flavors. Like you get some, raisin date notes in there. Really, like I said, when I do like lagers like this, I make sure I get at least 6 to 8 weeks, and letting them properly, lager and crash and the fermenter.
That's got to be a little tough, and especially in the summertime when you get that busy season and people are coming in and pounding beers.
There's been a couple times I've almost missed, like I think it was last year. I almost missed, I think Bockfest last year. I was only able to let it lager for like 3-4 weeks.
Right.
So I was like, kind of just didn't even think about it. And then I was like, I got to get this in now. But I did something interesting being on the subject of these kind of styles for Oktoberfest this coming year. I did some research about Martzens, and I might have not pronounced that correctly. But apparently back in the day, they would brew them in March and let them lager until Oktoberfest and then would serve them. So I kind of doing that right now.
That's interesting.
So I got Oktoberfest beer that's being lagered as we speak under pressure.
Here's the bigger question,
crashing.
though. When do you tap your Oktoberfest? Because I'm pretty sure if you're talking like distribution, everybody's got to start cranking them out pretty soon.
That's the nice
right.
part about ours is that we're not. It's not a distribution thing.
But
It's-
if people start seeing them in stores, do
True.
they start coming in here demanding for your Oktoberfest in July?
Well, they won't see it in stores. They'll see it in maybe some bars or restaurants
Yeah,
that might buy
he's
it.
like everybody
But in
else.
here,
Oh,
so
everyone
like-
else. Yeah.
So like,
Oh,
I was in the
yes.
store and I got so-and-so's Oktoberfest. I'm ready for Oktoberfest beers. I know it's July 15th, but why isn't yours on tap? It's
That's
just start
too
demanding
soon,
it.
man. That's like seeing Christmas stuff and like.
I think it's different.
You think it's everybody? I mean, I like.
I can do it year
Oktoberfest
round.
dates. I agree with you. I've heard you talk about that on the show before. I agree with you on that, but at the same time, like I also would kind of feel like later is better.
I think I could. Like at the same time, like if I went to the store and there were 4 Oktoberfests all year round just sitting on the shelf, would I get bored of it and then like it not be as fun when they do hit? I don't know.
I'd be okay if they weren't a seasonal thing as well.
Northern Row has what do they call theirs? Is it Brewer? I think whatever their Oktoberfest is. Well, I think they label it in the summertime as a German amber lager, but it's if you look at the can, it's at Meritzen. It's their Oktoberfest.
Yeah.
They do it year round,
That's smart.
and it seems to work okay for them.
Yeah, I mean, if it's selling, like, yeah, change the
It
name.
also maybe helps some people. Not that people don't understand what an Oktoberfest beer is, but like it maybe starts to help kind of communicate that to people. Like, hey, this is a German amber lager. Like those are 3 words that
Yeah.
people get,
Right.
Which maybe something like Bach, maybe having some way to communicate that and be like, hey, this is a German amber lager. Sweet.
Sometimes you just got to bring it down a little bit more like, when you're explaining what a beer is to folks.
I always thought it would be fun if there was a bar or a brewery that opened up, and instead of like even telling me what the beer style is, like if they just did like some very short flavor description of it, like, hey, this is 6% and it's amber and it's malty and it's dry. I'm like, okay, I think I want that. Like that sounds like exactly the type of thing that I like. But if you call something Oktoberfest, like I'm not really in the mood for Oktoberfest. It's July right now.
Yeah.
But you frame it differently. Like
Yeah.
I can drink it. People they get something in their head, and they have trouble kind of getting past that sometimes.
Yeah.
I agree. Like there's our Lagome is
Which one is that? Is that the
Is it-
Farmhouse ale.
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they see a farmhouse and they're just like, I don't think I'm gonna like
Yeah.
this. I'm like, it's not what you think.
No,
Right.
it's not
Like,
what you think at all.
I tell people, I'm like, just try a little bit. I guarantee you're gonna want a full pour.
Yeah, it's the beer when we go to Beer Fest. If we have that on tap, like people try it and then they just keep coming back for it.
Right.
Yep. 9 times out of 10, if you let anyone try that particular beer, they're like, oh wow, yes, that's really good.
On the
Like,
opposite end of the spectrum, if you put IPA next to anything, everybody will order it.
Yeah. Yeah, they fly here, man.
Now I will say too, though, like as far as like parties and people coming here and stuff, like get a lot of older people here.
Yeah.
they're not so much into the IPAs and that kind of thing.
Sure.
But they'll try a Lagome. The other one is like I get asked all the time is, oh, do you have Bud Light, Miller Lite, Coors Light here? And I'm like, no, we have our own beer here, but we have some things that are comparable and better brewed.
Right. We have something that will hit those flavor notes for you that'll make you happy.
Yeah, and so like our American lager and the Mexican lager are right there in that wheelhouse. The German Pils that's getting ready to come out is another one that definitely hits right in that same space.
What is the most popular beer that you guys have?
Probably the American
I would say
lager.
You would say the American. I would say the Mexican, but
One of those two.
It's a
That
tie
tracks.
between those two. Yeah, those are like our basically the flagship beers.
I'm again kind of going back to the state of craft beer and kind of my own weird crisis that I'm going through. I can't figure out, like, I've wanted lager to become popular for years,
Oh, Lagerfest.
and then now that it is in some ways, I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, it's not really what I meant. I wasn't talking about Cincy Light, and I wasn't talking about, like, that's not really what I wanted
No.
lager to be. Fine with it, and I get that it's got its place, but it does give me some kind of concern about the state of craft beer. Like, so many people are walking in and, like, it's like, fine, I can't drink Bud Light, but I'll have your Mexican lager or whatever. Or I just want a cocktail, or I just want seltzer. And like, we don't want. How do we get here? Like, there still has to be people that want craft beer.
I think there's just such a cornucopia of people that come into a brewery.
Yeah.
And so like you get, for instance, like if I go into a brewery with like my wife and some friends or whatever, like I know me, like craft beer all the way. My wife, not so much. Like she might want a cider is more her thing, or she might even go for like what bourbon's available, like that's thing. And just different people of different things. And I think it's nice that there's more of a mix of that at the breweries.
And
'Cause
like,
there wasn't at the
most
beginning.
people that I talk to, whether they're being honest or not, are saying, "Oh, our sales of actual craft beer are not any less than they were when we started offering seltzer or
Yeah.
cocktails or whatever. Like, our craft beer sales aren't changing, but like when you look at the actual numbers nationwide, the craft beer is declining. Like, people are drinking less craft beer. Mm-hmm. That's concerning to me. Is there concern from you guys? Not like, as you look at that and be like, oh no, like maybe we gotta put in a still and start making spirits or something.
Like I personally think it's I feel like this time period
It's a
in
blip.
everyone's life
We're gonna go back to something. Please tell me we're going back to something.
I'm hoping so because
everyone's so like I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Everyone's like so concerned about calories and health and whatnot. I think that's why you're seeing a rise with these like NAs and low-cal beers and seltzers and stuff like that. So I mean, we do a light lager, but once again, it's done properly,
Right.
and like, a lot of people, dude, it flew last year.
Gone. Yeah.
It was only like 3.5%, and people just dug it because it was, we didn't have to get it tested, so we couldn't promote it as, under 100 calories or whatever. But, Beersmith, I did it showed me a calculation of calories, and it was something like 95 for a pint, not just 12 ounces, like a whole pint was only like 95 calories.
Yeah.
So we're thinking about possibly sending it off and getting tested so we can actually promote it as a light lager under 100 calories, all this, that, the other.
Do you guys get like a lot of like bike riders and joggers and stuff here? Like I imagine this is probably kind of.
It varies really.
Can't figure out if this would be like a spot where you get a ton of them or a spot where you would get none.
It's sort of one of those deals where if you get people that are headed out like east or whatever, they might stop.
Right.
But for the most part, like it's very low. I mean, we've got a bike rack out here that I think the city put out for us. Sometimes you get folks that come from Lunkin because it's just a little bit of a jog to here, but at the same, like it's not a heavy thing. It's not like, being on like the bike path for, Little Miami and having all that.
I imagine that if it was like along some kind of like crazy thoroughfare like that for joggers and bikers and whatnot, maybe having something that was actively advertised as low cal or electrolytes or whatever, like it might be more of a thing. Like I think the word light is all you need to get people to like, oh, that's the one I want. How many big beer brands figured that out a long time ago, that as long as you put that in the name, people are going to buy it.
Yeah. Like, 50, that was one of their better selling drinks during the summertime was that, I can't even remember the name of it.
Is that Gatorade beer?
Quencher.
The Quencher?
Yeah.
Quencher.
Yeah.
And the same thing at Narrow Path, they do the, I can't think of theirs though. But it's a Gatorade beer. And both of those places are, lots of active people, the other end of the spectrum for me.
But like whenever I make beer here, I always try to think of clientele as well.
If I'm sweating, it's because I'm drinking in the sun.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
that's
Right.
the only
Exactly.
reason.
But if I made a beer like that, I doubt it would do well here.
You might be surprised though too.
Yeah.
It might catch you off guard sometimes.
It could, but I see what the clientele drinks, and it's a lot of lagers and IPAs.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with that because I love making those two beers. I love drinking those two kinds of beers. So,
what is your favorite beer style to drink? We'll talk about brewing in a second, but if you say light lager, I'm gonna.
dude,
I really like those Gatorade beers.
honestly, I would say West Coast IPAs.
Okay.
Like I love me a good West Coast.
What does West Coast IPA mean to you?
Is that drop out?
Punch you.
Is that drop out?
Like punch you in the mouth bitterness.
Okay.
Like it's there. Like it's there. You're not even questioning it. Like high IBU, not too high. Like if it's too high, it's just like undrinkable. But
it's got to be bitter.
Like mid
it's
to high
be clear.
60s.
This is my stance here. It's got to be bitter. It's got to be clear. It doesn't have to be high ABV. It doesn't have to be a big beer. But I need that bitter kind of bite. I need a little bit of that caramel kind of malt come through.
Yep.
I get the things. I'm not calling anybody out. I'm not going to do that.
Come on, unleash.
I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it.
It's so hard not to like say specific names and stuff.
IPA is just such a weird like subset of styles at this point. Like it's it gets confusing. It's getting confusing for the drinker, in my opinion. That like you can't walk in like if it says black IPA, I should know that beer is going to come out and it's going to look like a dark beer, and it's going to have some hops in it.
Right.
Just if I sit down somewhere and I order a black IPA and it comes out and it's clear and bright, kind of orange colored, I'm going to lose my mind, and I feel like that's where we're getting.
Well, I feel like there's some people that come in here and kind of lose their mind when we have our coffee blonde on tap.
Lager.
Yeah,
Coffee lager.
Coffee lager. And so they they think that they're going to get a dark beer because of the word coffee in it.
And that's valid because it doesn't tell me like coffee lager could be a coffee Schwartz beer. Like that'd be fun.
Sure, which we have our own Schwartz beer here anyway.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
But like, so I'll let that one slide a little bit.
I just love watching
but-
people's faces though. Like when our servers like bring it to them, and their like immediate thought is like, "Huh? Like, did you bring me the right beer?"
Yeah,
And as soon as they put their nose up to it, they know.
yeah.
That's
a fun style. I remember the first time I had like a blonde stout it was at 50 West actually when they collaborated with Blank Slate and did it was called Luck or Luck of the
Slate.
Luck something Fool's Gold.
Fool's Gold.
It was
I was going to
Fool's
say,
Gold.
I think
Yeah.
it's Fool's Gold.
Now you're making me hurt by talking about Blank Slate, dude.
And
like,
like,
oh.
and you know that you look at it, it looks like one thing, and then the first time you take, just your nose gets there, you're like this is not. My brain isn't understanding what my eyes are seeing and what it knows. Like I love stuff like that, but it was communicated. I knew when it's like this is a blonde stout, and I'm like those don't make sense together, but I know what I'm getting.
Yeah, right.
I'm like, so styles should mean something, and like I think that's getting confusing sometimes.
Well-
And that's where we'll drop with the West Coast IPA conversation.
Well, I think, people think just because when you make coffee, like you usually the beans are ground up. My beans are not ground up. They're whole bean, so they're not extracting any color. Not much anyway.
Right.
Like not enough to turn it to like some weird, like it'd probably be like some brown color. It probably wouldn't even be black, but like it's just when people don't understand the process, that's when like the confusion,
Right.
That's why there's confusion. But once they start understanding, like it's whole bean, we don't crush it, but you're still getting a little bit of caffeine and flavor.
There is also some market education happening now with that. We're seeing more and more lighter coffee beers. I actually think that's a weird thing happening in this region versus other ones. Like I don't think if you go out to the West Coast, you're going to see a lot of light coffee beers on tap places. Like it's something that's very unique to what this region is doing.
Yeah, they're usually like a porter or stout.
Yeah, like but people are starting to get it around here and almost expect people to start making one.
Right,
It's
yeah.
a good thing. Tell me about this one.
All right, this one.
This is a special one.
If you tell me this is a Pilsner, I'm going to lose my mind.
It's a black Pilsner.
It's a really dark Pilsner.
Black Pilsner I would accept as a style, even though it's not a real thing, because I would know what it was going to be.
So this is
Sort of.
this is a Mocha Imperial Stout.
Okay.
There's no coffee beans in this one, but from the grain bill there is that like coffee astringency that you're going to get. Obviously, you're going to know that.
Is there chocolate in it or?
Yes, I did it was like a bag of this chocolate sauce that was on LD Carlson's like list of stuff. I put that in there. It was like 2 gallons of caramel and it was like 84 ounces of vanilla at the very end. And it just,
I like that.
dude, it hits all the notes. It's not overly done.
Do you consider this a pastry stout?
No, I would say no.
It's borderline.
I mean,
don't.
there is
There's
a
this really
little
great kind of bitter thing at the end that kind of
Yeah.
cuts through it and kind of, to me, makes it not a pastry stout.
I just did a touch of
I like
lactose. I didn't do a lot of lactose,
No,
but
that's great.
yeah. And this is the beer that's being barrel aged in Augusta, 8-year bourbon barrels.
Oh, yeah.
Right now for our 5-year anniversary, we're doing a bottle release with this beer in barrels.
What is the date on the anniversary party?
We haven't quite nailed that down, but it'll either be the first or second weekend in October.
Yeah.
When the
'Cause
date
the October
when the
10th
date is set, I'm not going to say. I'm going to go back and update the show notes. I'm not going to say it,
No,
but
don't
maybe
do it.
I will.
It's okay. We'll make sure that we spread the word. But yeah, October 10th is our actual anniversary
Okay.
for our 5-year. It falls during the week. So we haven't decided if we're going to do it before or we're going to do it after just yet. We're trying to line up bands because last year when we did our 4-year, it was like an entire day of Grateful Dead cover bands. And
Right.
it was an awesome party. It was so much fun. And so we now have electricity at the other end of the deck. So we can have a little bit more space for the bands and stuff like that. So we're trying to just get all that rounded up and put together.
Right. This is great.
Yeah.
This is again one of those beers. Sometimes when you walk in a place, there are things that maybe some kind of thing that's already in your head prevents you from ordering or makes it so you don't kind of lean towards. I don't know that I would order this because I'm like, Mocha, pastry stew. It's not really what I want, but now that's in front of me.
Yeah.
I dig that a lot.
Yeah. Like I said, it doesn't drink like a 10%, or you don't get like any of that like fusel alcohol burn or anything like that. It's just like, it's a dangerous 10% beer.
That little bitter kind of kick at the end is what does it for me. It kind of keeps it tamed down.
This one too. So we have a thing on Sundays from 2 to 6 where we do a bourbon and cigar event.
Oh, yeah.
So we just at the back of the brew
sounds
house.
like a terrible experience that I need to go to.
Yes, come on out, man. So we basically from 2 to 6, everybody's hanging out that wants to smoke cigars and whatnot back behind the brew house. We've got a patio back there. This beer pairs really well with the cigar.
I could see that.
Yep.
And then we also Kyle will pick a bottle. He'll buy like a few of them and do like a $6 pour. So like the first time we did it, we had like Knob Creek 9-year at like 120 proof, which was like an awesome like high octane with the cigar type of thing. But yeah, like this beer is probably like the go-to for me for. If I'm like, I'm not sure much gonna go for a bourbon today. Like this is the beer I want.
No, I can see that. Let's before we kind of start wrapping things up, let's go back to kind of Dead Low as a whole. Let's talk about kind of the history of this place, what it means, and the name. I hope everybody has heard the story at this point, but I'm sure there's people that are listening that don't. What's the name mean? Let's go through the whole spiel here.
Where's Paul when you need him?
I know, right? That's what we need. No, so Dead Low is a river term that basically is the last yelled mark for the depth of the river.
Right.
So you have like Mark 1, Mark 2, Dead Low. Mark Twain actually is how like he got his name from hearing Mark 2 all the time out on the river. And basically Dead Low, it just talks about like getting through life, just that's kind of the whole idea of you're going to go through challenges. That's the idea for Dead Low. This place, when it opened up 6 months before COVID, like really kind of went through that whole transit of life and getting things put in place. But, between that and like all the different transformations that's taken place with the brewers and food and all, staff and things like that, it all fits very much inside of that story. And then kind of the cool thing with all of that is, we've got a lot of history here and pictures and things like that. Yeah. Downstairs, we've actually got one of the oldest pictures of the riverfront on the wall. It's an actual like floor to ceiling wrap.
That's cool.
Of 1848 riverfront. And what's cool about that too is I recently made a QR code that you can scan. You can do that up here in the tap room, or you can do it downstairs because we've actually got a version of it framed up here. But there are all these pinpoints of different things that'll tell you these amazing stories about all the different places that are there, and a lot of them are still things that are standing, which is a mind-blowing.
I love that when you can see an old picture like that, and somebody can point to it and be like, "Hey, now you see that building right there? There it is." It's like things like that are cool. I like reminding myself sometimes that it still is the same place.
So it's just really cool to see all that, and there's tons of riverboats in there as well, which kind of falls in place with like the announcement of like the tall stacks that's coming in for next year and stuff. And so there's like 42 riverboats in that in that one picture, which is really neat.
Yeah.
So just kind of all those elements like just kind of play into like the history of this place, and we're right off the Ohio, so it's just this place has a lot to tell.
Yeah.
And a lot to give, not just aside from like coming in and eating and things like that. So
when you look at, there are some things that make Cincinnati, and obviously the German heritage is one of those things. We talked about it a little bit earlier. But the river itself is a huge part of what makes this city what it is.
Yeah.
And there haven't been a lot of breweries that have, paid some kind of respect to that in their personality. I mean, we had Rivertown that was in Lockland, which
it was a ways from the river.
We moved to Monroe, which is even further from the river. It's fine. Yeah. But then, and then got 13 Below at the other end of, it's, I guess it's that way, right?
West. Yeah, it's that way.
I always get confused when I drive up this way because you go through Kentucky.
Well, you were
that way.
talking about like, oh, this is California, Ohio.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people sometimes like there's a California, Ohio, and there's a California, Kentucky.
Yeah.
I did some research on that when I started working here because I was just kind of curious, like, what is that all about? So this is kind of a fun dad story, actually.
All right.
So you got families that are on the Ohio heading west. And, they've been traveling for a while, and all of a sudden their kids are like, are we there yet? Like, they're trying to get to, like, the Mississippi and maybe, like, actually further out west. But they start asking, around here, like, are we there yet? Are we there yet? And, like, we're almost there. And, like, that was the story. And then at one point, the dads are like, pull over the side. Like, we're here, California. And that's how California, that's how it got
really
its name.
how it did?
If you look it up on
That's
Wikipedia, that's how it is.
fantastic.
And then it was like, the other group was like, oh, we're going to go for a little while longer. And like, they got sick and tired of their kids just a little bit longer down the river. It's like, we're in California. Like,
little did we know there's Californias in every state all along the river.
right? Exactly. But that's how they got the name, was that just the parents were like, we're in
That's
California.
great.
We're here. So
That is
like,
great.
feel bad for those kids that realized later, like,
Wait a minute. You mean I grew up in Ohio?
it's a weird thing. There's snow here. And like, that's not California.
California is not at all what I expected it to be.
Yeah.
It is funny, and it's one of those kind of neighborhoods here in Cincinnati that I think people don't understand still that it exists. There's when
very
Brewdog
small pocket.
opened in Pendleton, which is right in OTR.
Right, yeah.
Everybody's like, what's Pendleton? And people talk about it, and then now it's become its own thing as more places have opened up there.
Yeah.
And maybe that'll be the same for
Well,
California.
the Danger
Ohio.
Wheels has really kind of put Pendleton on the map.
Yeah, I would think so.
We did that last year. That was, oh my gosh, that was so much fun.
That is one of my favorite events that always falls on the same weekend as something else. So I'm either like getting there early and then have to leave, or I'm getting there late after having to be somewhere else. Always, every year, there's something else going on.
That is truly one of like the great free events for families to come.
Oh, it's amazing.
Come hang out at.
And it just like throughout the day, it just keeps getting better and better and better, and people get a couple beers in them. And
I thought it was interesting that, so we got knocked out after about 2 races, and then they were like, we're going to do a blind race. And I'm like, what does that mean exactly? like you're just going to pair us up blindly, like with 2 people? Like, what is the deal? No, they literally take a helmet that's blacked out and put it on these drivers' heads and like send them down a freaking gauntlet.
well, and if people haven't been, so they every race, like the ramps get bigger.
Oh yeah, they're huge.
The people that are throwing water balloons at you get
Vicious.
drunker and throw them harder. And
Yeah.
if you wreck, you're then going to get pelted by 30 water balloons all at the same time.
For all little kids, it's like Mario Kart. Throw the shell.
That's fun. Maybe they can start like giving the people on the big wheels like their own water balloons that they can throw at each other. A couple banana peels.
That's what the people pushing down they get to do. They get to run after it and throw at everybody else and try to like knock them off.
If people don't know something about Dead Low that you want them to know, what is that? Is there something that you think that people might not know about this place?
For me, I think it's that people are always surprised that we have monthly comedy shows and improv shows here. Most people don't know that.
Still have never been to one of the shows, but the pictures that I've seen, it looks like a straight up comedy club. Like it's,
downstairs? Yeah. We get guys that have been
awesome
in the game for a while that come and do a show. Like I think it was CJ Edmondson came and did a show, and he's done Comedy Central specials, and he was like, oh my God, this feels like New York, like old school in the basement type of deal. So, but yeah, we're actually pivoting for the summer. We're going to do third Thursday night comedy shows instead of our typical third Saturday.
Right.
And a $5 ticket too, which is actually a
great.
lot cheaper. So that's going to be a lot of fun, and more comedians, like 6 or 7 coming in for like 15, 20-minute.
That's great.
So, but then the improv is a blast too. So like those 2 things, like those are constants like that we have downstairs. Also gives you a chance to see that mural because it's down in that same room.
Yeah. What about you? You think there's anything that people don't know about Dead Low that you want them to know?
Nothing comes to mind, honestly.
If somebody walks in and they're like, hey man, I got time for 1 beer, what's the thing they should order?
Malt liquor.
What if that's not on tap?
Love it. If it's not on tap, you should raise hell and tell them it needs to come back.
Exactly. Honestly, I tell people it really depends on what you like, but I feel like all the stuff I put out is better than average.
That's
I would say.
probably the right answer, but
I always tell people
Because
too.
you know, you never know what people like.
Yeah, I always tell people too. I'm like, hey, if you tried a few things and there's something that you didn't get to try, like grab a crowler on the way
Yeah.
out. Like
Yeah.
that way you can try it later.
Yep.
and you guys do have some of your beers in cans that are available to go, right?
Yep.
So you can pick up a 6-pack and take it home and go sit by the pool or the boat or whatever you happen to be doing this summer.
Yep.
And if you don't
And,
find it,
enjoy.
you won't find it at maybe at Kroger, but if you go on the website, there's a whole map.
I just
that
come
shows
here and
all
get
the
it.
different
Come here.
cubes. Yeah,
come here.
Yeah,
This is-
we've
that's
got
the
it
best
over here
way.
too. Yeah.
And then you can grab a pint while I'm just stopping and getting a 6-pack, and then you drink a pint as you're here.
grab some wings on the way out.
Right. Thank you guys very much. I appreciate you making some time for me and sitting
problem.
down and telling everybody your story. And if you guys haven't been here, get here. Come here. Be ready to eat, because I don't think you should come here and not eat. The wings are awesome. What else is on the menu that people need to try right now?
Pizza.
What is fun?
Burgers here. Oh,
The specials are always good. If you're a pickle person, when the pickle soup actually shows up as a special,
I've
don't miss that.
heard about the pickle soup. Still have not tried it.
Oh,
But,
it's excellent. Wayne is a wizard in the kitchen when it comes to the pickle soup. So
any
shout out to
soup,
Wayne.
any soup, man. That dude kills it. He kills it.
That should have been the thing. If you don't know something about Dead Low, the pickle
There you
soup.
go.
Pickle soup, yeah. You're not any other place in Cincinnati. You're gonna find pickle soup.
Well, like I said, I appreciate you guys so much. We will be back next week. We'll be talking about Cincinnati craft beer. I don't know for sure what we're talking about, because I don't think I have the show booked yet. So we'll see. If you like the show and you want to support it, go to thenarlygnome.com/support, and it makes my wife very happy. And just share it with your friends, because that's how all this stuff keeps going, keeps growing. So I appreciate all of you guys for that. Cincy Brewcast, it's the voice of Cincy Craft.